Now, welcome to part 6 of my story about what happens if Ahsoka Tano never leaves the Jedi Order, and instead she and Fives begin to unravel the true or final purpose of the Clone Army, which is of course to carry out Order 66 and kill the Jedi. And very quickly before getting back to it, if you haven't seen the first 5 parts of this yet, I would highly recommend starting at part 1, and if you like it, working your way back to this part. Otherwise, this video or part of the story really isn't going to make much sense to you. Links to all previous parts will be in the comments and description below, and also note that future parts will be released every Tuesday. Anyway, without further ado, let's get back to the story. We find ourselves in space, above and quickly moving away from the planet Dathomir, aboard Count Dooku's solar sailor, where the Sith Lord sits at the controls of his ship with a dark, troubled look on his face. It seems that the words spoken to him by Maul, that Sidious has no place for him in the future, and that he even looks to replace him soon enough with Anakin Skywalker, still weigh heavily upon his mind. And it's with these thoughts at the forefront of his mind that a small, holographic image of Sidious springs to life before him on the control panel, and as it does, Dooku's expression only darkens as he says, "My lord." Immediately Sidious then asks, "Is it done?" "It is," Dooku replies. "Maul and Tano have been dealt with as you requested." Sidious is then quiet for a long moment before saying, "Are you sure? I sense a great deal of uncertainty within you." Dooku simply says back, "Both were left buried under a mound of boulders on Dathomir." Sidious then snarls, "Maul has survived worse." Dooku replies, "Indeed he has, and he may survive yet again, as may Tano. Their fates are now in the hands of the Force." Though partially obscured by a hood, we can still see anger begin to boil on the face of Palpatine before he says, "Left to fate, the Force is ours. We do not bend to its will, we shape it." "So you have told me many times," Dooku responds, "and thus I have decided to shape my fate once more." Dooku presses some buttons on the control panel, and a moment later his ship makes the jump to hyperspace. Sidious, looking angrier than ever now, asks, "And where is it you are going?" "To Scipio, my lord," Dooku replies. "My contacts have informed me that the banking clan is meeting with Senator Amidala, and that Anakin Skywalker has been sent to accompany her, and I would very much like to speak with the young Jedi." Sidious, so angry that his face is quivering with rage, is about to say something, but that's when Dooku casually reaches out, presses a button on the control panel, and the holographic image of Sidious fades away. Dooku then leans back in his seat, sits up straight, and looks quite pleased with himself as he stares out the view screen and into the bluish-white blur of hyperspace beyond. Which is when we're taken to somewhere dark. So dark that at first we see nothing but a small glimmer of light that we draw ever closer to, and soon enough we can tell that it's actually Ahsoka Tano we're seeing, who has her eyes shut as she seems to be alive and resting rather comfortably, despite the many wounds she's suffered when the rocks and boulders fell upon her. There's also no sign of Marin, the young Nightsister who dragged her into this cave, and we can now ever so faintly make out the jagged shapes of the rocky cave walls all around her. As we then get even closer to Ahsoka, we can see that she lays on some type of elevated, solid stone table that's etched with strange, faintly glowing green runes along its base. But there's also a faint, shimmering white glow or aura around Ahsoka herself, almost like a shield made of light. And now, suddenly taking shape all around her, are green, ghostly figures that we can only guess are somehow the spirits of long-dead Nightsisters. And from the dozens that now surround Ahsoka, one moves forward towards the stone table and the shielded body upon it. When there, it stretches out a green, faintly transparent hand towards Ahsoka's forehead, but as soon as it comes in contact with the shield, there is a brief but blinding flash of light, which causes the Nightsister spirit to hiss as if both angry and in pain as it draws back and away. That's when we're then taken somewhere else entirely, where we behold a truly strange yet impressive sight. A gray, mountainous landscape covered in dying trees that trembles and shakes violently, so badly in fact that the land or world itself seems to be breaking or falling apart, and parts of this landscape seem to fall away into a foggy, swirling nothingness below, while others literally fall up into a dense, dark storm cloud above. And standing upon one of the tallest peaks we can see, watching it all happen, is Ahsoka Tano, while at her side is a beautiful green-haired woman with angelic-like features, who we know to be the daughter of Mortis. We then hear Ahsoka say, her awestruck eyes focused on the chaos all around her, How how did I get back here? The daughter then answers, a part of you never left, as a part of me left this place to be with you. Ahsoka turns to look at her, and the daughter finishes, in many ways, you and I are now one and the same. Ahsoka shakes her head. I don't understand. The daughter smiles at her. There is much I still do not understand either, much my father kept from both my brother and I. The daughter looks all around her at the crumbling world, and with sadness in her eyes, she says, like what will happen when this place ceases to be. All Ahsoka does then is give her a concerned and questioning look, and so the daughter explains. Right now, we are everywhere and nowhere at the same time, in a place somewhere between the living and cosmic force, a gateway of sorts that helps maintain the balance between the two, the balance of all things. It was this balance that Anakin Skywalker was meant to maintain for many long ages to come, or so my father believed. The daughter then makes a sound almost like a faint, cynical laugh and concludes, though now I am wondering if my father did not tell me these things because he himself did not know. Ahsoka then asks, and what do you believe? What do you think is happening or will happen? The daughter quietly thinks for a moment and then says, I believe Anakin Skywalker is the chosen one, created by the Force itself for a greater purpose, but that even my father did not fully understand what that purpose is, what it all means. For in Anakin's future, my father only ever saw darkness for the galaxy, and it was this darkness that my father thought could be avoided by bringing Anakin here, by having him take his place. The daughter sighs and hangs her head and continues, but my father did not anticipate just how the darkness would draw my brother in and consume him. The two then stand quietly for some time and watch as a massive chunk of this world known as Mortis breaks off and floats into the heavens above. Ahsoka then says, can this be stopped? The daughter shakes her head. I'd been using the last of my power to hold it all together, but now I use that power to manifest us in this place, so that I may speak with you like this once more. And I also use my power to protect you, to shield you from the magic of the Nightsister witches. Hearing that seems to obviously trouble Ahsoka, and we see her briefly racking her brain as if trying to remember where she was and what she was doing or what was happening before she found herself here. But before she can remember, the daughter continues, again watching as everything around them falls apart. This was inevitable after the events of your last visit, I'm afraid, and I fear when this place is gone, the veil may be broken. The veil? Ahsoka echoes, and just as she does, the ground at their feet begins to quake, and it seems as if the mountain they stand upon is about ready to fall apart, and all around them larger and larger chunks break free and fall or float away. Ahsoka seems to realize their time is growing short and says quickly, what about Anakin? What must I do to save him? The daughter now echoes her. Save him? She shakes her head and looks sympathetically upon Ahsoka and finishes, he is not the one who needs saving. It is the people of the galaxy that will need saving from him. Ahsoka gives one quick shake of the head. No, I won't accept that. There has to be a way to save him. The daughter shakes her own head and says, the only way to save Anakin is to save him from this dark fate, this dark destiny of his. And the only way to do that, I'm afraid... Her voice fades away, and again Ahsoka gives a shake of the head. No, that can't be the only way. The daughter sighs softly and reaches out her hand and places it upon Ahsoka's cheek. We and Ahsoka then see a rush of images, hear tormented voices and cries of pain. And we quickly realize that what we're seeing is the future. We're seeing the fall of Anakin, the rise of Darth Vader, and the misery the galaxy is in under the rule of the Sith. When it's all over, a single tear rolls down the cheek of Ahsoka, and she collapses to her knees and says, no, Anakin, no. The daughter, who suddenly looks very weak herself, like she too is about to collapse, then says, perhaps it was not always meant to be this way. Perhaps what the Force truly intended for Anakin was prevented somehow. The daughter nods and then says mostly to herself, yes, something must have happened that changed everything that was meant to be, and now it cannot be undone. She looks upon Ahsoka again and says just as the mountain they're on breaks free from what's left of the land and begins to fall into the gray nothingness below them. Our destinies are laid before us by the Force, but our own actions and the actions of others can turn us away from that intended path. Everything is always in motion. Just then the mountain they're on rolls onto its side, and as the daughter ever so slowly fades away as if fading out of existence, Ahsoka begins to fall from the mountain and towards the gray, swirling nothingness below, until she is swallowed up by it. And soon enough, all we see again is darkness, total and absolute darkness. But then we hear a single voice calling out a name, and that name it calls out to is Master Yoda, and the voice belongs to Qui-Gon Jinn. Next, we see the eyes of Master Yoda snap open and find that he sits in a meditation chamber in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and next to him is Mace Windu, who sits cross-legged with his eyes closed, also meditating. That's when we and Yoda hear the voice of Qui-Gon Jinn yet again, and this time it says, "Yoda, there's still time." It's then, as if sensing something troubling from the old green Jedi Master, that Mace Windu's eyes also open, and he looks upon Yoda, who appears distracted or like he's listening for something that isn't there, and he looks at him with some concern as he asks if everything is okay. "Heard something, I thought I did," Yoda responds. Windu gives a questioning look as if asking him to elaborate further. "The voice of an old friend, I thought it was. A long-gone friend." Windu seems to only consider that all briefly before saying, "We both know that's not possible." Yoda gives a bit of a nod, but still looks rather troubled by the experience. Windu then suggests, "Perhaps we should meditate on it more. See if you hear the voice again." Yoda thinks a moment, then nods. "Yes, meditated on it more, we will." Next, we're taken to the mountainous and icy planet of Scipio, home to the Mun people as well as the banking clan, where we're taken into what appears to be a private room or apartment at night, where we see or join in progress an argument going on between Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala. "I honestly can't believe you're here," we hear Padme say. "Hey," Anakin responds, "it was the Chancellor's idea. He suggested I come here and keep an eye on you." Padme gives him a look as if to say, "Sure it was," and then she says, "And what about Ahsoka? Last I saw her, you were rushing off to save her." Anakin looks uncomfortable for a second, like he's not sure what to say, but then he does say, "She's, fine, like you tried to tell me, she can take care of herself." Padme then snaps back, "And I can take care of myself too." Anakin responds, "It's not you that I'm worried about, it's Rush Clovis that concerns me. I don't trust him." "Then trust me," Padme responds. "I do," Anakin quickly says. It's just that here you are," Padme finishes for him. But Anakin shakes his head. "That's not fair. I told you the Chancellor sent me. I'm not just here as your husband, you know, but as a Jedi. But as your husband, I'd like to know why you were so quick to take this assignment, to be the one to negotiate for the Republic with Rush Clovis." Padme says back, "Because, like you apparently, the Chancellor asked me to do it." That seems to catch Anakin by surprise a bit, and he mutters back, "He asked you?" Padme doesn't seem to either catch or react to that and says, "And maybe it's a good thing that he did, because I already got terms for the first part of the new deal with the banking clan all laid out, which I think would make you happy, since that means new helmets for the clones can be put into production immediately." Anakin then softens his attitude for a moment and says, "Well, yes, as a general that does make me happy, but again, as your husband, I won't let you continue these negotiations with Rush Clovis. Someone else can take your place from here on out." Padme rolls her eyes and looks beyond frustrated. She then says, "I can't do this right now, Anakin. I just had a very long day, and the only thing I want to do right now is get some sleep before another very long day." Anakin then quickly says, "Yeah, another long day with Rush Clovis, you mean?" Padme shuts her eyes and sighs in frustration. "You're impossible sometimes, you know that?" But Anakin quickly fires back, "I don't think I'm the one being unreasonable here." Padme looks as if she can't believe her ears, and then points at the door. "Just get out, Anakin. I can't do this right now, and I don't know how much longer I can do this, period." "And what's that supposed to mean?" Anakin asks. "One minute you're running to go and save Ahsoka despite me asking you to stay. The next you won't leave me alone because you don't trust me. This isn't what I thought it'd be like when we..." Anakin's whole mood suddenly seems to shift. "Hey, look, I'm sorry, but we both knew none of this was going to be easy. That's why I promised you I'd do anything to end this war." Padme then looks around at their lavish surroundings and says, "And is this helping accomplish that? Are you here to end the war, Anakin? Because I came here to secure funds for the Republic so that we can eventually win this. What's your reason for being here again?" Anakin doesn't seem to know what to say, and so Padme once again points at the door and simply says, "I need to get some sleep. Please just go for now." With a sigh, Anakin nods his head and then simply turns and leaves. Soon enough then, we're watching Anakin pace back and forth in the dark, in a different, slightly less luxurious apartment somewhere else on Scipio. And as he paces, we hear him angrily muttering to himself, but it's impossible to make out exactly what he's saying. Suddenly though, he stops, and his hand falls to his lightsaber hanging at his belt, and he takes hold of it and instantly ignites it, as his eyes drift to a short hallway that leads out to his balcony. Cautiously, Anakin then walks out onto it into the frigid night air, and sees the outline of a tall, dark-robed and hooded figure. Threateningly, Anakin points his saber at them, but the figure only responds by lowering their hood and revealing the face of Count Dooku, who then says, "I was beginning to wonder if you'd ever leave the prison of your own mind long enough to sense my presence, boy." Anakin smirks and says, "I don't think you'll be lucky enough to see the inside of the prison after I'm done with you." Dooku's brow raises ever so slightly, as if amused. "Then I suppose it is fortunate I did not come here to fight you." Anakin shakes his head. "I don't care why you came here," he says, and then looks as if he's about to charge and attack. But Dooku quickly says, "I've come here to end this war." Anakin instantly stops himself from attacking and looks bewildered. He then gets angry and says, "The only way this war ends is with your surrender or your death." "If only it were that easy," Dooku responds, sounding and looking rather genuine, which only confuses Anakin all the more. Dooku then continues, "Nevertheless, I'm not here to surrender, but I am here to make a deal." Anakin lowers his saber and rather sarcastically says, "Well, good thing there's a Republic negotiator here then." But Dooku quickly says back, "I'm not here to make a deal with the Republic, but rather to make one with you." Anakin says nothing, and only gives a skeptical look, which is when Dooku says, "We have much to discuss, young Skywalker." We're then taken back to Dathomir, back into the cave where we see Ahsoka's body still bloodied and bruised, laying upon the stone table, and still being protected by a soft white aura, while also still being encircled by the greenish spirits of dead Nightsisters. We then see Ahsoka's eyes open, and after they do, she looks around in a great deal of confusion for some time, but soon enough she seems to put enough together to get the gist of what's going on, that she somehow ended up in the Nightsister Cave. With a great deal of effort and some moans and groans of pain, Ahsoka manages to climb down off the table and she starts to hobble her way in whatever direction she randomly finds herself pointed in, wincing with each step she takes. Every so often one of the greenish spirits approaches her and tries to reach out or claw at her, but every time it does, there's a flash of light that seems to hurt them and force them all back once again. However, after several such attempts, we notice that the shield or light around Ahsoka is becoming dimmer and dimmer, and the Nightsister spirits seem to notice this too, for their attacks start to come much more frequently. When the shield around Ahsoka is all but gone is when she sees a dim red light ahead, the light of the world beyond the cave. With everything she has left in her, she shuffles forward as quickly as she can, and the attacks from the witches intensify, not wanting to lose their prey, and she manages to all but dive out of the cave just as the last bit of power from the shield fades away. Ahsoka then lays there for some time, breathing heavily and clearly in a great deal of pain. Her eyes then slide shut and some time goes by. When her eyes again open, crouched over her is Marin, the young Nightsister. "I'm sorry," the girl says. "They told me they'd help you." Ahsoka frowns at the girl but says nothing. Instead, Ahsoka just struggles to her feet and keeps walking on, back in the direction from whence she came, the direction where she and Maul were buried by boulders. After taking several dozen steps, Ahsoka turns and looks at Marin, who is still in the same spot. Ahsoka looks back at the cave, then back in the direction she is heading, and then gives Marin a look as if to say, "Decide if it's them or me." It doesn't take Marin long to choose, and as Ahsoka turns and begins to walk again, Marin quickly begins to silently follow. After some time, Ahsoka finally makes her way all the way back to where she had her encounter with Dooku. She first finds both of her sabers, the ones that were cut in half by Dooku, and after studying them briefly, looking at the damage, she sees that Dooku was very precise, and both the kyber crystals within have been severed, and so she simply tosses them away. She then stumbles towards the mound of boulders and sees several have been shifted and moved. Ahsoka then looks down at Marin, who has been following quietly the whole time, and with just a look, Ahsoka asks if that was her handiwork, if she was the one who moved the boulders, and if it had been her buried there. To that, Marin simply nods. Ahsoka then turns her attention back to the boulders, scanning them and seeming to reach out with the Force as if trying to sense something, to sense if maybe Maul is still alive or not. It's as she's doing this that Ahsoka hears the voice of the daughter in her head again, once again hears the words that she said before. Something must have happened that changed everything that was meant to be, and now it cannot be undone. It's after hearing this that an image flashes in Ahsoka's head, one that we of course can see as well. This image is somewhat confusing to Ahsoka, but we recognize it as the moment that Darth Maul plunged his saber through the stomach of Qui-Gon Jinn, ultimately killing him. Though confused by this, Ahsoka seems to take it as a sign that Maul is still alive, and so she closes her eyes and reaches out her hand, and with the Force and with a great deal of pain and effort, begins to move the boulders. After a few boulders are moved, Marin joins in and helps, using her Nightsister magic to reach out with a phantom green hand that also moves many of the rocks and boulders. Soon enough, they uncover the body of Maul, who is unconscious but seems to be alive. Ahsoka then takes a step or two towards him, and when she does, the eyes of Maul shoot open in such a way that she even jumps a little. Maul takes a moment to take note of his surroundings and to figure out what has happened, and then all he does is reach out a hand towards Ahsoka. But it's not a hand that's asking for help getting up and out of what could have easily been a rocky grave. It's a hand being extended in a way that's asking for her to join him. Ahsoka looks at that hand, then Maul's eyes, and says, "It was you. Somehow, I know you're the one who changed what was supposed to be." Maul does and says nothing to that. He simply keeps his hand extended. Ahsoka shakes her head a bit as if she can't believe what she's about to do, and then she mutters to herself, "And now you're going to help me make things right." And then she walks forward, and she takes Maul's hand, and that is where this part ends. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you thought of this part of the story, and what you think might happen next. Either way, do leave a comment below, and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thank you for watching.